Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Pantheon loadout guide video. In this video, I'm going to be talking about specifically the 4 boss encounters of week 1, which is Atraks Sovereign. In this case, it's going to be Gogo, Caretaker, Explicator, and Atraks. I'm just going to kind of go over the loadout situation for each boss encounter in terms of what super you should bring, what classes, and then what weapon combinations I think would help in beating the encounter or becoming a bit more optimized. Before talking about weapons, quick reminder that there are modifiers for Pantheon, and they're probably going to change each week. So currently the modifiers are going to be Void Surge, Strand Surge, and Class Warfare. Class Warfare in specific is basically free damage. This allows you to get bonus damage after using your class ability, and this can stack up to 3 times, meaning that 3 people can use their class ability during a boss damage phase to get the maximum amount. Then for phase 2, you can get the other 3 people to do it, and again, you'll be at x3. And I believe this works the same as Surges in that it gives you 10, 17, and then 22% extra damage. So when doing any of these bosses, keep that in mind. Now, in the hopes of keeping everyone's sanity, I'm not going to go over every single good weapon in the game for these encounters. I'm just going to make the best recommendations that I can for each encounter, not to keep you guys here for half an hour. So with that said, let's get started with the first boss of the gauntlet, which is going to be Gogo. For Gogo, I think the best 2 options you have in terms of character use here are going to be Well of Radiance Warlocks and Golden Gun Hunters. If you happen to be a Titan main and you don't have any other characters, then your 2 options here are going to be either being a Falling Star Thundercrash Titan or going Sunbreaker and utilizing Scorch, Radiant, etc. to keep the enemies at bay. Now, as far as the Warlocks go for this encounter, you guys are best suited to be the Gaze Holders on Gogo. The main reason for this being is that you can still rock Well of Radiance and pop that into the damage pool in the pit and also still be the Gaze Holder, so you're supporting your fire team, giving them damage resistance and also giving them a damage buff while you take care of the Gaze Holder yourself. Now, regardless whether you're a Warlock or not, as the Gaze Holder, you should be rocking Tractor Cannon in my opinion. There's 2 reasons for this. Number 1, you can debuff Gogo on your way out or in of the pit and give that 30% debuff on Gogo for your teammates to take advantage. Additionally, as the Gaze Holder, you are going to have an invisible Minotaur spawn on you as you're holding the Gaze. Tractor Cannon can work as a crowd control weapon in this case and blind that Minotaur, so you're free to just shoot the Axion darts of the boss. Or if you'd like, you just use Tractor on the Minotaur and then finisher him and just kill him outright. The rest of your loadout doesn't really matter in terms of weaponry, although I will say it'd be good to run something like Cenotaph and then a Trace Rifle in your energy or kinetic slot. That way, you can at least make some ammo for your fire team on the few yellow bars that you kill before the damage phase. Now, as for the rest of the fire team in the pit, given that this week's Pantheon is Strand and Void Surge, in this particular boss fight, you should take advantage of those affinities. However, I will say if you don't have any of the good affinity weapons for Void and Strand, you could use other things as well, such as Cataclysmic, because it rolls bait and switch and 4 times the charm, so essentially you're having one of the best damage perks in the game, but also refunding you ammo out of thin air thanks to 4 times the charm. Same thing applies to things like rewind rounds, reconstruction, etc. Whatever can give you ammo either out of thin air or just reload your mag mid-boss fight, that is really good. So in terms of weapons, for Strand, really your only 2 options here are either Cataphract or Caraxus' Distress. Both are grenade launchers that are Strand. Now, grenade launchers are really good in damage, but they can get you killed if your teammates strafe around a lot. So it kind of depends on your team. If everybody can just stay still when they're DPSing, then you can use a GL. If everybody just moves around like psychopaths, then probably get off of a GL. Overall, I think the best option for the average group is going to be Linear Fusions here, just for the ease of use, the great ammo economy, and obviously they have some of the best perks in the game in terms of damage. These are like Cataclysmic, Doom Petitioner, Taipan, Briar's Contempt, and so on. I think Doom Petitioner, out of all of them, is the best possible option, as it's a Void Linear Fusion, it has Envious Assassin or Reconstruction, and also it has Precision Instrument or Surrounded. Now, Surrounded is a little iffy because you don't want to be surrounded literally the entire time, but Precision Instrument is a perk that is now tied in damage to Bait and Switch, both being 30%, so it's a fantastic option overall, given that it's Void and one of the best perks in the game. With that said, let's move on to boss number 2, which is the Caretaker. Now, to be brutally honest, this is the least intensive loadout for a boss in this entire Pantheon challenge. Caretaker, strictly speaking, there's 2 things you want in your weapons. Number 1 is crowd control in your top 2 slots. For the Gaze Holders, you want something like Forbearance, because you get Arc Shielded Centurions to spawn in near you, and Phalanxes and Forbearance just whips them into shape real quick and gets rid of them instantly. And then for your heavy slot as the damage phase on Caretaker, there's generally one option that beats all of the rest, and that is Grand Overture. If you're unfamiliar with Grand Overture, basically, you shoot something 20 times to load up 20 missiles into the mag. It could be immune enemies, by the way. It doesn't even have to be something that you're fighting actively. So you load it up to 20 shots and just leave it there kind of until you get to the damage phase. Once you get to the damage phase, you just hold the reload button and then fire your next bullet, which will fire 20 volleys at the enemy instantly to do massive damage. Now, the best thing about Grand Overture is that unless you stop playing the game in the Forsaken era, literally everyone has this gun because it was a season pass weapon. And even if you don't, you can just get an exotic cipher and then get this weapon out of the kiosk. It's just so insanely easy to use to get burst damage on Caretaker that you really don't need to recommend anything else. But if for some reason you don't have Grand Overture, you just need to go with any weapon that can do real fast burst damage. So in this case, I'm talking about things like grenade launchers or maybe a 3-shot burst linear. Now, in terms of compositions for your supers, Titans, again, your best friend is going to be Thunder Crash with Falling Star. Warlocks, depending on how many Warlocks you have, you want to have 2 wells to be alternating just to have a well for each floor if it comes down to that. And if you have any additional Warlocks past that, I would recommend running Needle Storm on Strand as your super. Given that it's a good burst super and it's also Strand Surge, that's really helpful. And lastly, for Hunters, your best friend again is going to be Celestial Nighthawk Golden Gun, as it's an instant free burst super straight in the head for massive damage. And you can also get off your Grand Overture before or after that super as well, so it works out perfectly. Alright, next boss, the Explicator. So this is where it starts getting a little bit dicey and they start adding layers to modifiers on this. First thing you should know is during the planets portion of this encounter, you are now going to fight Arc Shielded Colossus, so your loadout should consist of something ideally that can break the shield quickly, whether it's something like Indebted Kindness or just anything affinity based that you know you can crack it really fast. Second thing you should note is that there is a Tormentor in the arena now after you've completed the Index, so your loadouts should be catered a little bit towards the Tormentor. There's a few options to take care of Tormentors in terms of weaponry. The first thing I want to talk about is a general one that anybody can run, and that is Forerunner. Forerunner is a great choice for precision damage to take down the shoulders of the Tormentor, as well as keep shooting him in the chest, as it does good damage to an unshielded enemy, but also it staggers the Tormentor so it doesn't go over somewhere and start running people over. Speaking of the great precision damage, Hunters also have an option of using Lucky Pants with a hand cannon to do great damage on a Tormentor. In particular, Warden's Law with 4 times Vorpal is fantastic on them, and then if you add a Divinity Cage into the mix, which is another common option that people use, then you will hit instant headshots every single time, and then Warden's Law will just basically melt the Tormentor in a couple of seconds. And as I just briefly mentioned, once the shoulders are down, you could have somebody run Divinity on the Tormentor to make you an instant guarantee crit spot, and then anybody can shoot it with basically anything to down him if you guys need that. For Explicator and the boss damage phase, nothing really changes out of the norm for this boss fight. You put your wells in the middle so the tornadoes don't kill you, and then you use burst supers or burst weaponry on the boss, as you only get a couple of seconds to shoot him per plate. So things like Golden Gun, Thunder Crash, even Nova Bomb technically, although I would go Needle Storm instead of Nova Bomb. Any of those things work great, and then things like Rocket Launchers and GLs also are fantastic for the burst little tiny damage phases that you get. So think like Cataphract, Edge Transit, Apex Predator, Cold Comfort, things of that nature. Although I will mention, if you're using rockets, make sure that you have a Galahorn shooting with you. Finally, we have Atraks, the final boss of this Pantheon week. Right out the gate, I want to mention, same thing as Explicator, you will get a Tormentor in the arena for this fight. And again, I want to reiterate, you can use either the weapons that I just mentioned that are good for Tormentors, or try to use crowd control in the sense of Shackle Grenades, Tractor Cannon, etc. In particular, I will say Shackle Grenades will work fantastic because on the super end of the boss damage phase, you can utilize things like Needle Storm for great burst damage on the boss. So you're going to be on Strand, you might as well run a Shackle Grenade. Now, as for weaponry on the boss, nothing really has changed in terms of the best options for a damage phase. I think the best recommendation for this is going to be Parasite. Now, for those that don't know what Parasite does, essentially it works just like Grand Overture. It can stack to an X20 buff for damage, and the only difference being is that you don't actually have to shoot things with Parasite. You can shoot things with your other weapons and then get the X20 on that. Quick note, shooting red bars will give you 1 stack on the X20 for Parasite, but shooting orange bars or above will give you 5 if you get the kill. So ideally, you can just get 4 orange bar kills and then you're at X20. And then your other 2 weapon slots should consist of trying to either take care of the Tormentor or try to burst down yellow bars, because in this encounter, the Operator and the Scanner Vandal are actually going to be yellow bars, and you want to burst them down as quick as possible because they have a decent amount of health. As for supers, once again, burst supers are going to be key for this. Celestial Nighthawk, Golden Gun, or Blade Barrage if you're more comfortable with that. Thunder Crash Titan with Falling Star. Or if you have an abundance of Warlocks, absolutely Needle Storm to go in on the boss at the end. Now, I will mention, though, that it does help to have 1 or 2 Well of Radiances in this encounter, because if you're going for damage strats, let's say you're doing the 6-man up top, for Atraks, you're going to have a ton of stuff shooting you, especially in Final Stand. There will be like 8, 9, 10 Atraxes trying to shoot you, and putting down a Well of Radiance on the floor for your fighting team to stand in while you look for the scanner to find the right boss is very helpful. Now, there is one more thing I want to mention with damage and your heavy weapon slot during the Atrax DPS portion. Once you fired your worm and your X20 is gone, assuming you have not downed Atraks in one go with the 6-man strat up top and you have to continue, then you can hot swap to a different weapon when you're in the elevator or you're waiting for your fire team to down the second Atrax so it comes back up. In this case, you can use a sword. Things like Lament and then using the light heavy combo works great on Atrax. Or if you happen to have one, you could do a void sword like Falling Guillotine or even other half and then sword the boss that way since it's Void Surge and you get the void buff. Then, if you happen to have Eager Edge on one of those, and you happen to be like the scanner or the team traveling downstairs and then upstairs, you can utilize Eager Edge to get there faster for extra time so you don't wipe. And generally speaking, that is it for the loadout guide, at least for this particular week in the Pantheon Gauntlet. Who knows what it's going to have next week, maybe different modifiers. It is going to have an extra boss, so that's going to be something else to look at. And of course, the affinity probably will change from Void and Strand to like Stasis and a different element as well. So that's it. Let me know what you guys think. Do you have any other loadouts that you're using to optimize in Pantheon? Let me know in the comments below. And if you want to support the channel, consider subscribing today. It does help the channel grow and is much appreciated. And if you want to go the extra mile, you can leave a like and or comment below as well. If you don't know what to comment, you can just leave Pantheon as the comment. Other than that, thanks for watching. Catch you next time.